Some islands appear on every world map, but they were never intended to be visited. Some were emptied by human command. Others because nature drew a line that could not be crossed. From radioactive atolls to outcrops guarded by ancient tribes, these are territories where human presence has been forcibly erased. Today, we are exploring 10 of the most dangerous and forbidden islands on Earth. Real locations, documented and restricted, that have earned their reputations. Nazino Island, Russia. In the middle of the frozen Obi River in Siberia lies Nazino Island, a strip of land barely 3 miles long and 600 yards wide. In the summer of 1933, this unremarkable island became the site of a humanitarian catastrophe so severe that Soviet authorities suppressed the records for over half a century. More than 6,000 people, classified as social elements by the government, were deported and dumped onto the island with no tools, no shelter, and only raw flour for sustenance. Within days, the lack of infrastructure turned the island into a literal slaughterhouse. Without ovens to bake bread, the prisoners mixed the flour with river water, causing immediate and deadly outbreaks of dysentery. The physical reality of the island offered no escape, only swampy ground and freezing nights. Historical documents later revealed by the Soviet archives include the report of Vasily Velichko, a local official who described finding survivors who had turned to cannibalism to survive the extreme hunger. By the time the camp was evacuated 13 weeks later, approximately 4,000 people were dead or missing. Today, the island is a silent graveyard. There are no fences or guards left, but its isolation in the vast Siberian wilderness and its history of systematic neglect keep it far out of reach. It remains a stark testament to the speed at which a landscape can transform into a territory of absolute survival. Hashima Island, Japan. Emerging from the East China Sea off the coast of Nagasaki is a silhouette so jagged and industrial that it looks like a concrete battleship anchored in the water. This is Hashima Island, known to the locals as Gunkanjima. Covering only 16 acres, which is roughly the size of 12 American football fields, this island was once the most densely populated spot on the planet. During the mid-20th century, over 5,000 people lived and worked here, packed into massive concrete apartment blocks to fuel Japan's industrial revolution through undersea coal mining. The miners descended into shafts that reached depths of over 3,000 feet below the ocean floor, working in temperatures that often exceeded 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Life on the island was a labyrinth of stairways and narrow corridors with no trees, no parks, and no escape from the sound of the ocean. During World War II, the island's history took a darker turn as it became a site of forced labor for Korean and Chinese prisoners. When the world shifted from coal to petroleum, the island's purpose vanished almost instantly. In 1974, Mitsubishi closed the mines, and the entire population was evacuated in a matter of weeks, leaving behind furniture, toys, and half-eaten meals. The salt spray has since eaten into the rebar, causing the buildings to crumble in a state of slow-motion collapse. Today, Japan restricts access to the island due to the extreme risk of falling debris, allowing only small groups to view designated paths under strict supervision. The island stands as a hollowed-out monument to a vertical society that was built, exhausted, and abandoned. Poveglia Island, Italy. Less than 2 miles from the luxury hotels and crowded canals of Venice lies Poveglia, a small island that the local government has spent years trying to sell or lease with no success. Its reputation is not built on myth, but on centuries of use as a dumping ground for the sick and the dying. During the Black Death, the Venetian Republic established Poveglia as a lazaretto, a permanent quarantine station where those suspected of carrying the plague were sent to wait out their symptoms or die. Archaeological excavations have uncovered massive plague pits containing the remains of thousands of victims layered in the soil like geological strata. In the early 20th century, the island's dark history continued when it was converted into a psychiatric hospital. The facility was poorly funded and isolated, leading to documented reports of patient mistreatment before it finally closed its doors in 1968. Since then, the buildings have been reclaimed by ivy and decay. The Italian government attempted to auction a 99-year lease of the island in 2014 to a private developer, but the deal fell through, leaving the island in a legal and physical limbo. Access is strictly prohibited by the Venetian maritime authorities, and the few who receive special permits find a landscape where the soil is reportedly composed of a high percentage of human ash from the centuries of cremations. It is a territory that the modern world has simply chosen to leave behind. Ilha de Queimada Grande, Brazil. Approximately 22 miles off the coast of São Paulo, the forest of Ilha de Queimada Grande is so dangerous that the Brazilian Navy has officially banned any civilian from setting foot on its shores. This is the only home of the golden lancehead viper, one of the most venomous snakes in existence. Biologists estimate there are between 2,000 and 4,000 of these snakes on the island, which measures only 110 acres. Because the island is isolated, the snakes evolved to hunt migratory birds that land in the treetops. To ensure their prey does not fly away after being bitten, their venom evolved to be 3 to 5 times more potent than that of their mainland relatives. A single bite can cause systemic hemorrhage and can literally melt human flesh. The only structure on the island is an automated lighthouse, which the Navy visits once a year for maintenance under extreme safety protocols. Scientists who receive rare permits to study the vipers must be accompanied by a government doctor at all times. There are no trails, no clearings, and no margin for error. The density of the predators is so high that in certain areas, you are never more than 3 feet away from a lethal strike. The island is not empty because of a lack of resources, but because the biological reality of the terrain makes human presence biologically impossible. Bouvet Island, Norway. Located in the South Atlantic between Africa and Antarctica, Bouvet Island holds the title of the most remote island on the planet. It is over 1,600 miles away from the nearest human settlement in South Africa, a distance equivalent to traveling from New York City to Denver with nothing but freezing water in between. Over 90% of the island is buried under permanent glaciers, and its coast consists of sheer volcanic cliffs that rise hundreds of feet straight out of the ocean, making a ship landing nearly impossible. The weather is a constant cycle of hurricane-force winds and blinding snow, with temperatures rarely rising above freezing. Despite its isolation, the island is the site of a genuine Cold War mystery known as the Vela Incident. In September 1979, a United States satellite detected a double flash of light near the island, a signature characteristic of a nuclear weapons test. No nation has ever officially claimed responsibility for the event, and the remote nature of Bouvet ensured that no witnesses were present. The island has never had a permanent population, and the only human structures are automated weather stations that are frequently destroyed by the elements. Norway maintains the island as a nature reserve, but the logistical nightmare of reaching it means that fewer people have stood on the summit of Bouvet than have walked on the moon. It is a frozen volcanic fortress that remains one of the few places on the globe where nature has successfully resisted any form of human mapping or control. Ramri Island, Myanmar. Off the coast of Myanmar lies Ramri Island, a landscape dominated by dense mangrove swamps and tidal mudflats that hide one of the largest populations of saltwater crocodiles in the world. These reptiles can grow to lengths of over 20 feet and weigh more than 2,000 pounds, making them the largest living reptiles on Earth. During the Second World War, the island was the site of a brutal confrontation between British and Japanese forces. In February 1945, nearly 1,000 Japanese soldiers attempted to retreat through 8 miles of these mangrove swamps to join a larger battalion. The retreat turned into a disaster that is often cited as one of the most horrific encounters between humans and animals in military history. Trapped in thick mud that reached their waists, The soldiers were picked off by crocodiles under the cover of darkness. While some historians debate the exact number of casualties, the official British reports from the era describe a night of constant gunfire and screams from the swamps. Beyond this historical event, the island remains largely uninhabitable due to the prevalence of malaria-carrying mosquitoes and the extreme difficulty of the terrain. Large portions of the island have no roads or infrastructure, and the tidal surges can swallow entire sections of the coast without warning. It is an environment where the food chain has never been successfully overturned by human technology. Grunard Island, Scotland. For nearly 5 decades, the small Scottish island of Grunard was a void on the map, cordoned off by the British Ministry of Defence and marked with signs warning of a mortal danger that could not be seen. During World War II, the British military chose this remote outcrop to test the feasibility of using anthrax as a biological weapon. In 1942, a highly lethal strain known as Volum 4578 was dispersed across the island to observe its effect on a flock of sheep. The experiment was a terrifying success. The sheep died within days, and the scientists realized that the anthrax spores had become deeply embedded in the soil. These spores are incredibly resilient and can remain dormant and deadly for decades. The island was declared off-limits to the public, and any unauthorized landing was considered a suicide mission. It wasn't until 1986 that the government began a massive decontamination project, soaking the entire island in 280 tons of formaldehyde diluted with seawater. Although it was declared safe in 1990, the island remains completely uninhabited. Local residents and researchers remain cautious, as the long-term stability of a site once saturated with biological agents is still a subject of scientific observation. The island stands as a quiet, green hill slope that hides a history of engineered destruction. Bikini Atoll, Marshall Islands. In the Central Pacific, the Bikini Atoll looks like a tropical paradise, with white sand beaches and turquoise lagoons that should be a world-class tourist destination. Instead, it is one of the most radioactive places on the planet. Between 1946 and 1958, the United States used this atoll as a primary site for nuclear testing, detonating a total of 23 atomic and hydrogen bombs. The most powerful of these, the Castle Bravo test in 1954, had a yield of 15 megatons, over 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The explosion was so intense, it vaporized 3 entire islands and created a crater on the lagoon floor that is 2,000 yards wide and 250 feet deep. The local population was evacuated before the tests and moved to smaller, less resource-rich islands, where they suffered from malnutrition and the long-term effects of radiation exposure. Today, the soil on Bikini Atoll remains contaminated with cesium-137. While the radiation levels in the air have dropped, the coconuts and fruit growing on the island absorb the toxins from the earth, making them lethal if consumed over a long period. The lagoon is home to a ghost fleet of sunken warships, including the aircraft carrier USS Saratoga, which serves as a highly restricted diving site. The atoll is a beautiful, sun-drenched graveyard where the environment has been permanently altered by the birth of the nuclear age. Surtsey, Iceland. In November 1963, sailors off the southern coast of Iceland witnessed a column of black smoke rising from the ocean, thinking a ship was on fire. What they were actually seeing was the birth of Surtsey, a new volcanic island rising from the seafloor. Over the course of nearly 4 years, volcanic eruptions built a landmass that eventually reached a height of over 500 feet above sea level. From the moment the lava cooled, the Icelandic government turned the island into one of the world's most restricted scientific preserves. Surtsey is a unique, pristine laboratory where scientists can observe how life colonizes new land without any human interference. To maintain this purity, only a handful of researchers are allowed to visit, and they must follow extreme protocols to ensure they do not accidentally introduce foreign seeds or bacteria. In one famous incident, A scientist discovered a tomato plant growing on the island, which was immediately destroyed after it was realized someone had bypassed the strict waste disposal rules. The island is slowly being reclaimed by the ocean. Wind and wave erosion have already reduced its surface area by half since its peak. It is a place where every bird, insect, and blade of grass is tracked and documented as part of a global experiment in natural succession. Human access remains forbidden to protect a process that has been running uninterrupted for over 60 years. North Sentinel Island, India. Located in the Bay of Bengal, North Sentinel Island is perhaps the most isolated place in the modern world. While the rest of the planet is connected by fiber optics and satellite surveillance, the Sentinelese tribe has lived here for an estimated 60,000 years with almost zero contact with the outside world. They are one of the last uncontacted peoples on Earth, and they have made it clear through centuries of violent encounters that they wish to remain that way. In 1974, a National Geographic film crew attempted to land on the beach and was met with a volley of arrows, one of which struck the director in the thigh. More recently, in 2018, an American missionary who illegally traveled to the island was killed shortly after stepping onto the shore. The Indian government has established a 3-mile exclusion zone around the island, patrolled by the Coast Guard to prevent any further tragedies and to protect the tribe from outside diseases to which they have no immunity. There are no maps of the island's interior, no census of its population, and no understanding of its language. It is a sovereign territory guarded not by modern military technology, but by a prehistoric determination to remain alone. The island is a reminder that there are still boundaries on this planet that cannot be negotiated, and a culture that has successfully opted out of the history of the rest of the world. These islands are more than just geographic anomalies. They are the places where human ambition, conflict, and the raw power of the natural world have collided to create zones of total exclusion. From the radioactive craters of Bikini Atoll to the desperate mud of Nazino Island, these territories prove that our hold on the planet is often more fragile than we care to admit. They exist as physical reminders that there are still borders defined by consequences rather than laws. If you want to continue exploring the most extreme and hidden corners of our world, subscribe to Forbidden Terrains. Leave a comment below telling us which of these islands surprised you the most, or suggest a location you believe should remain off limits. If you found this investigation insightful, please leave a like. We will see you in the next one.